Hello everyone and welcome back to Milo Farms. Well, we are out in the shop today and we are trying to take a look at this issue we're having with the 2000 Yamaha Mountain Max 700. So last year we put on a new drive belt on the snowmobile. This snowmobile's got almost 7,000 miles on it. It's all original. So we put this new drive belt on and it worked okay for a little while, but what we noticed is every time we'd stop, it would start to squeal. So we checked the tension and all the adjustments and everything on the belt, and we've got it as loose as it can be with this new belt, but the problem is it's still squealing. So if you look right here, and it's going to be hard to tell in the camera, you can see the belt right here sticking up above, and the manual says it could stick up like 1.5 millimeters above the outside of the secondary clutch here, or it could be recessed inside the secondary clutch up to, I believe it was 0.5 millimeter. It's hard to tell. This is probably 2 millimeters maybe, or something like that, or maybe 1.5 millimeters, but it's right on the borderline of being a little bit too tight. It's affecting the way the clutch is working, and it's also squealing just a little bit at idle and causing extra drag. You can even see it starting to cause some wear on the back side of the belt right here unnecessarily. So what we're going to do today is try to adjust it, but the issue is we can't adjust it the normal way. We need to take a look at what's going on inside the clutch that's causing us to not be able to get the maximum width adjustment with what we have here. So this particular clutch can be found on a lot of Yamahas, the RX-1s, things like that. They use this same kind of clutch on many different things. But the proper way to adjust the spacing between the two sides of the secondary clutch is to use these 3 screws on the back right here. There's one here, and one right there on the back side. The way you would do that is you'd put the belt on with the clutch off like this, and then you'd set the spacing to those adjustments that we talked about, the belt above or below. And then what you do, as you can see right here, there is no washer on that bolt, and so that right now is at the maximum width that you can get. So it should be at its widest point, but the problem is we're not getting that. So under normal circumstances, you would use these little washers right here. These particular ones I think are 1 millimeter thick. These are the thick ones. And then new in the package here I have a 0.5 millimeter thick one. So if you had a really worn out belt, you could have the millimeter one, or I guess you could probably have a stack of them to get those two sides of that pulley as close together as possible to deal with that really worn out belt. But under normal circumstances, you'll just find like one of the thicker ones in there, or maybe one of the thinner ones, or with the newest of belts, you would find no washers in there. So it just kind of depends on your machine, how everything's worn and how everything's set up. But the issue that I'm suspecting is we're going to find that the plate that these 3 bolts strike against inside the clutch is worn out where these bolts are, so we're losing that last, let's say 0.5 millimeter of adjustment for the newest of new belts that's on there. So we're going to take this clutch apart and see if we're correct on that, and we could either replace that plate in there, or you can actually flip it upside down and wear it again on the back side. So let's take a look. So the thing to remember right off the bat is there is a lot of spring tension inside of this clutch. You can see down inside you've got the secondary spring clutch right there, and so you want to make sure that you don't, number one, get anything out of order or change the angle that it's in or how these holes are. You don't want to get it in the wrong hole or anything like that, because that will drastically affect your clutching. So first thing I did is went through with a Sharpie and I marked everything that I think I could maybe mark. So I marked where the spring went. Then over here on the side, I marked where the two halves come back together. Then over here, on this side right here, I marked the two halves of that, where those come together. And so we're going to go ahead and loosen these 3 bolts right here. And you can do this with one person, but you want to be very careful and do it slowly. So first thing we're going to do is loosen these 3 bolts, take them off until they're held down by just a couple of threads. So as you can see there, as I loosened it, the top part of this scooted up, and in some cases you'll start to see this lower part of the clutch, the way it's laying right here, start to slide down and away. These bolts are actually connected to this back piece. So we'll go ahead and take these nuts off, and it's kind of sitting right now by itself, and it'll stay there, but you want to be prepared because it's going to come off in just a second. So I'm going to have to set the camera down, but what we're going to do is we're going to take this piece here, twist it just a little bit clockwise, and then this bottom piece is most likely going to fall down, and then some of this is going to twist as well. So I'm going to go ahead and do that, and then we'll come back. So there you can see this top part twisted from right here where it was over to here, and then this bottom half fell down as well. So we're going to go ahead and take these pieces off. Remember, we marked where everything goes so we can make sure to get it back together. So there's the first piece off. Everything looks all right on this. It doesn't look too worn. Then you've got the clutch spring right here, and it has another end. So as you can see, I marked which hole it goes in the last time I had this apart. So you want to make sure you know, because if you get it off, it may not work correctly. Then you'll see these little ramps inside the clutch. You can make sure those are okay. This one right here is chipped a little bit, and they all have some wear. So at almost 7,000 miles, that's pretty good. We're going to take these and clean them all up, or clean this clutch up, and then replace those little plastic or whatever they are ramps as well while I have it apart. So then we'll lift off this top piece. And there you can see the back side of those bolts, the adjustment bolts. So when I flip this over, here you can see the spot that those bolts land every single time. And those holes, it's hard to tell on the camera, but those holes from being beat on all those years and rubbed on have just about close to a 1/2 millimeter or a little shy of that recess. So what we're going to do, I've already marked where it's at right here. We're going to go ahead and take this off, and we're going to look at a couple of options, possibly spinning it, one set of holes, which I don't think is going to work, or we're going to flip this thing over and wear the back side of it. So we're going to need a number 3 Phillips right here to do that. These are extremely tight usually. One trick you can do when using a number 3 Phillips, the shaft of the screwdriver is slick, but you can use a small crescent wrench and catch right here above where the point goes into the screw, and use that in addition to holding the screwdriver to help you get those undone. So we're going to go ahead and loosen those 3 screws. So there you can see the plates off. You can kind of see that wear mark in there. It's hard to tell. But let's take a look at this. The way it was positioned originally was just like that. If we spin it, we're still going to end up with it in the same place, and that's not going to help our issue. But if we take it and flip it over, that's going to fix our problem, because right where that black mark is, that's where the original wear mark is. Now the original wear is over here on the back side. So we can go ahead and tighten this all back down, and then we're going to start wearing again in that same spot. The other thing you could also do if you had to is get new screws as well that might be a little bit longer. But I think the issue is more so the wear on this plate. The screws don't seem to have much wear. So there we go, all back together. Then we can start wearing the new spot. Again, get another hopefully 7,000 miles out of this clutch. So I've got the new little plastic pieces on order to get those replaced. We'll pick those up at the first of the week. Then we'll go ahead and put this all back together for now. So you got to remember where you had your original hole right here for the spring. Make sure you get that back in position. And then you'll take the top piece here that you took off first, and we've got the marks that we made right here. So we'll get that close to that side, and then we'll twist it into position. All right, there it is, snapped back together. You can see everything's lined up. One thing that makes it handy is to set this on something with this bottom piece to support it while you're trying to fight that top piece on. So on one side I have a screwdriver handle, the other side I have that little socket set box. So we'll go ahead and put those 3 nuts back on. Okay, it's back together, and now as you can see there, the belt is down right flush with the edge. So that's going to give us a little bit more slack and should take care of our little squealing problem. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. We got this all put back together, and it's a good lesson on how the clutch comes apart. I'm going to go ahead and get those replacement pieces taken care of, and we'll get that put back in before we take it out on the trail next time. So I hope everybody enjoyed the video. Remember, you can't finish a project without getting started.